Alright, in the last video we completed the facing operation on this workpiece. The next step is to do the roughing operation, and I want to clear out this chunk of material right in here. We're not doing any turning on this 1.9 inch diameter, but we'll create, or rough rather, the 0.75 inch diameter and the 1.250 inch diameter back to 800th out to the first shoulder and 1.6 to the second shoulder. So before we begin selecting any geometry or applying any tool paths, one thing I want to do is get rid of this line segment that's between the diameters, because when the geometry is selected, it will get to this point and then it won't know what to do with this line, if it's to go up or to go down. So if we clear out this section right here and then this section right here, we won't have any kind of issue with the geometry selection. It's always good to tidy up your drawing first before doing any toolpath application. So I'm going to tidy up this window as well by hiding the toolpath for the face operation. Let's go into wireframe. I'm going to use the divide function to get rid of that. So you can see we still have a complete profile. It just tidies up the whole thing a little bit. So if we go to the turning operation, remember on the previous video we faced right up to Z0, so we're not doing any finish facing in this particular toolpath. Face right up to Z0, and then we'll just rough and finish these lines right here. Okay, let's pick the roughing operation. And it says right here within this chaining window, select the entry point or chain the inner boundary. So I'm not going to change any of the options right here. It's a pretty powerful menu. There's a lot of tools here, but for what we're doing and for the vast majority of work in Mastercam, you can take care of what you're doing with the default options that are presented to you. So be careful again with your geometry selection. We want to start at this line moving in this direction. So just like when you're on the mill, you want to be careful about where along the line you select, because if we pick over here, it's always trying to force us to feed in a particular direction. So if it assumes if we pick on this half of the line, that's the starting half or first half of the line, and we don't want that. We want to go the opposite direction. So I'm going to hit the snow smoking sign and then select the right half of this line, or the first half if you consider the direction to feed. So we're going to go right there, and you'll notice the dialog box has changed that says select the last entity. So it's the final line you want to be machining in this operation. So it's a fairly visual representation of what you're doing, and we want to pick right here. You can be a little less careful about how you pick this line. If you want to just keep maintaining best practice, the bottom half here, and then notice the dialog box has changed back to the original setting. I'm just going to hit check. There are no additional geometry to select. And then we have to go back through the same process that we did to select a facing operation. We're going to use a roughing tool just like we have in the shop available to us. And the good news is we're going to use the same roughing tool that we did to do our roughing and finish facing with. And I'm going to have an opportunity to explain the force tool change button in this operation. So we'll pick tool 4 as established in the previous video. You'll notice that tool 4, offset 4, station 4 are all switched over now. It's the same tool nose radius, OD rough turning tool, right hand orientation, 80-degree insert. And the feed right here for roughing operation, we can go anywhere from 0.01 to 0.015. I'm going to stick with maybe something like 0.012. Plunge feed rate we can leave as it is. That's your non-cutting but also non-rapid feed rate. So you're in a G01 with this number. You have an F program with it. So that would be the feed rate. If your tool rapids to this position right here and then feeds in before cutting, that's that slow feed rate. We can leave that alone. That's fine. It's kind of nice to have a slow movement into the workpiece. It's a little less scary when you're running the machine. Now with our spindle speed, we can get a little more use out of this tool because we'll be feeding toward the chuck. It's a more robust operation. So we go with 400 cutting speed, and then again setting the max spindle speed for safety because of that centrifugal force can cause the chuck jaws to separate and release the workpiece. We'll go with 2000 RPM, coolant turned on, and we'll turn this force tool change on. So I'll explain what this does right now. Because we did our facing operation with tool number 4 that you see right here, if we hadn't turned that on when Mastercam produces the G code to send to the machine, the facing operation would happen and then immediately the facing operation would begin with no pause or interruption in between. So by having force tool change come on, it inserts an M01 and a tool change code and that allows us to stop the machine in between operations to check the condition of the tool, take a measurement, check surface finish, whatever it is that you might want to do in between those operations, or even if you want to just be able to restart the program after, say, a lengthy facing operation. You want to be able to restart quickly at roughing because you've maybe hit emergency stop or a feed hold and a reset in between. It just allows you a lot more flexibility and versatility. So again, you're better off to always use it and turn it on because it will save you more time in the long run. It very rarely costs you any time, but it often saves you a lot of trouble. So I highly recommend always turn on force tool change, even if it doesn't make a difference. So as usual, we'll give this a comment, and let's call this rough profile. Nice caps lock so everybody can see. And then within this window, you can see it's a little more detailed than what we had in the facing operation, but we still only have to concern ourselves with a few certain operations, or fields rather. So first of all would be the depth of cut, and depending on what kind of machine you have, maybe you're only capable of a light cut of about 30 thou. Maybe you're on a more robust machine where you can go 150 thou radial depth of cut. I'm going to go with something a little more modest for a common application of about 60 thou. It's aggressive but not overly aggressive. And then we want to focus on the stock to leave an X. So this would be, this is your rough surface right here, and this is your finished surface. How much are we leaving on for finishing? So the advice I typically give is to slightly exceed the tool nose radius of your finishing tool. So if you have a 15 thou tool nose radius, 0.015, maybe you can input 0.02 to get good cutter engagement, good tool life, and a great surface finish on your workpiece when you go to finishing. Now in Z, you have to be careful because this is your shape of your insert right here. And when you bring your roughing tool, or rather your finishing tool, in to finish this surface after roughing, if you've left a lot of material on Z, you get a lot of engagement between this face of the workpiece and this face of the tool. And in order to avoid that, we do go with a lot less material left in Z to reduce stress on the machine. You can go pretty low with this number, about 0.003. You'll still get good results, but you do have to be careful about leaving too much material in this category. And of course, these numbers fluctuate depending on the application. So there's a lot of other operations here. I like the cutting method, the direction everything's going. We're using computer compensation because this is a roughing operation. We'll use where when we go to finishing. One more thing I want to change here, because again, most stock settings work just the way they are as a default condition, is changing the stock recognition to remaining stock. So I'm going to go from disable stock recognition to remaining stock. This will make the computer consider, look at that, after hitting the green check mark, how quickly that generated. Anyways, it causes the computer to consider where the rough material, or how much material has been removed already with facing, but how much remains before doing your roughing to decide where the tool path is generated. So that's a really important one that can help avoid some crashes on the machine. I would encourage you to turn that one on as often as you have a choice to, just like force tool change. But let's take a look at that operation. Everything looks pretty tidy. You can see here on the negative side of the workpiece, or what is below X0, that's the pattern that you would get out of your workpiece. So let's take a look at the back plot, and then we can do a quick simulation coupled with the facing operation. You get a really effective tool path. It sure beats writing the G code to perform the same operation, especially this feed path right here, where you see it goes up and over 2 different diameters. It would take you a little while to write that code, but it's pretty easy to generate in a few steps. And if you want to do something like increase your depth of cut, it's pretty simple. Go right here, go to 100 thou depth of cut, regenerate, and you can see here, there's your heavier cut. The blue lines being your feed lines, or G01s. Your yellow lines being your rapid movements back out. So what happens is the tool rapids in to here, right here, feeds in blue, and this is your lead out right here. So it leads back out by 45 degrees, probably by a length of about 0.1, and then rapids back out, rapids down to the next position, feeds in blue line out for G01, and then G0 again back for the clearance. So there you go, there's your roughing, and let's take a look at that with your facing operation in the 3D simulation. A quick overview of this window right here. I like to turn on stop conditions operation change, so there's a pause in between facing and roughing, just like having your optional stop turned on the machine. And then I'm going to go to, turn backplot back on. Sorry, verify, there we go. Color loop turned on to see the difference between operations. There's your facing operation. And there's your rough turning operation. No collision with the chuck jaws. And then all that's left is a finishing operation for another video. Save your work.